Hello, welcome to my grandpa's train. Today I'm going to tear into the American Flyer New Haven electric locomotive, the 21573. This is the GE EP-5. And I'm going to take it apart and give it a servicing so that this thing will run around the tracks once again. These locomotives only came with a single motor, so apparently they were not known for their performance quite like the Alco PAs were. But in my opinion, the single motors are a little bit better because they're a little easier to service. Only half as many motors, of course. So what we're going to do today is take this apart and get the motor to go. And then I'm also going to take the shell over to the sink and give it a very gentle scrubbing, clean off all that layer of dust on the top. Alright, so far there's a lot of dust bunnies underneath here. I do not see any screws underneath this, but I believe there is a way into it from the top. So there's what appears to be a screw up there. I'll take that out and see if that'll let us inside. Alright, I have the screw loosened up. That's a big screw there. Okay, that took quite a while to get this loosened up. From what I've heard, old plastics will tend to shrink a little bit over time, and this end of the nose had tightened up against this rounded edge of the frame, and it was caught in there. I had to be extremely careful just to not damage any of the plastic shell since it's in really good shape. Once it's out though, this thing isn't really all that bad, so it should be relatively straightforward to get it going again. Yeah, the inside of the shell is nice and clean too. But that thing is greasy. Now I do not see a date stamp inside here, which is kind of unusual. I was really hoping this would identify what year it was from. But I so far do not see anything. So I've got this locomotive torn down, and this one is really sticky. There's sticky dust all over the frame, and there's sticky grease all over the motor. I found something interesting to show you this time. This field coil has a broken wire. So that means that I'm either going to have to rewire this field, or I think I actually have a spare field coil assembly kicking around somewhere in a box of spare parts. I'll have to look for that. If not, I will be looking up the Tom Barker's book, How to Rewind These Field Coils, because I think these can be made to be a little bit stronger than they originally were. I'll have to check into that. I did test the windings on the rotor, and they are good. So now it's a matter of cleaning up all the carbon grease and the sticky grease and the nasty dust. Yeah, these wheels do not want to turn. This one is like gummed up. So this will get a bath, scrubbed it up with degreaser, and then it's going to run through the ultrasonic cleaner. And I noticed that this appears to have plastic gears on the axles. They are not shiny brass like you usually see. So we'll get her all cleaned up and then put it back together. And I'll have another update when it is in progress. Alright, here's the update. Most of the work has been already completed on repairing the locomotive here. I'll just kind of talk through what I did to it. I had this completely stripped down to the frame. I removed both trucks and truck frames. I cleaned the sticky grease and hair and fuzz off of the wheels, the motor, and the reverse mechanism. In order to take this one apart, the wiring is soldered on to the reverser and the motor points. So I figured the best way to get the motor taken out, first I removed these two pickup points from each of the trucks. So I desoldered all of the wiring on the top, and then this one actually runs underneath the frame for the front headlight. Then I removed the two screws to get that reverse mechanism out. That way it would allow it to slide forward so I could drop the front truck down out of the way. From that point I could desolder all four of the wires from the motor, and then I could actually remove the wiring harness from the motor separately, and then I could work on the reverser separate from the motor. This reverser was actually in really good shape. It was very clean and operates very smoothly. I just took it apart, polished up all the grease. There was a thick layer of sticky grease on the reversing mechanism itself, so it wouldn't operate very well. And then I polished it. I used the fiberglass pencil on all the brass contacts. The motor on this had a couple issues with it. The real main issue, it just needed to be cleaned and degreased, got rid of all the old sticky grease that would slow it down. And then the other main issue with this motor is that there was a break in the field coil. So the correct way to fix that would obviously be to replace the entire field coil wire, but I don't have any of this wire available. I have to figure out which is the correct gauge and how many wraps it would take to rewire that. Then I have to order up the correct type of magnet wire. So I removed probably close to 2 feet of the field coil wire, and I put it back together in a temporary state. So for now, I actually do have the motor running with the slightly modified smaller field coil, just mildly smaller, and it seems to run okay. I did some test runs on the layout with this chassis put together. I also polished all of the wheels. I've started using Brasso to polish everything. Copper and brass it works quite well on, but it also did a good job on these wheels. And then I tried test running this on my layout. Without the truck side frames in, it would stutter and spark quite a lot. Once I put the truck side frames back on, that gave me the extra pickup shoes on each of the truck side frames, and that allowed it to operate very smoothly. So just having that extra pickup shoes really makes a difference. The last thing I need to do is put the shell back on the locomotive, and then we will take it to the layout and test it out. I also need to find a source that has replacement horns, because once this has its second horn installed, this will be almost a perfect complete locomotive. I used gentle detergent on this and a soft toothbrush, an old toothbrush, but I was unable to completely remove all of the dirt and grease that has accumulated on this locomotive over time. The white paint has stains. Some of them look like greasy fingerprints that were not from me, like this one was here before I got it. Not sure how to remove greasy stains from white paint. Other than that, the shell is in really great shape. The pantographs I'm going to take and coat with a layer of WD-40. That is going to protect the metal and keep it from rusting, because sometimes little bits of rust like that can spread and really deteriorate the look of it. Also, I can, probably won't at the moment, but I can polish these brass pieces with the Brasso here. That'll really give them a nice shine. However, that's outside of the scope of this video. Right now I'm just trying to get the locomotive together and operating to pull a train. So, all we should have left to do is put the shell on, and it should slide in place relatively easily. Just like that. And we're snapped into place. And then we'll take it to the layout and test it. Alright, our New Haven electric locomotive is put back together and on the tracks and ready to run. For the purposes of my testing, I will not be raising the pantographs. Of course, they don't actually do anything for electrical pickup on the model, but the reason I'm not going to be pulling those up is because they will snag in the tunnel. So I will just leave these down and locked in place for today's video. I'm also testing it with 3 lightweight cars. These are the Pullman, green Pullman cars, and they roll very nicely. They're not stiff, so that should make a really easy test load for our locomotive. Now, the train cars that this came with, I have not yet restored. Those are in line later, and I'm going to be doing those eventually, but for the time being, I'm not going to use those because they are caked with grease and might cause problems for this locomotive. So let's run it with the Pullman cars first, and then maybe some other freight cars. Alright, so the train I put together is actually going to be really similar to the train that this locomotive came with, because I do have certain cars that are actually duplicates, although they may have the different numbers on them. And then I also used my 977 Action Caboose. So let's hook up to the train and see how it goes. Didn't want a couple. Alright, this is going to conclude the restoration video of the American Flyer New Haven electric locomotive number 21573. This is the General Electric EP-5 model that this is modeled after. And it's certainly an unusual locomotive to me because, being from the Midwest, there weren't too many of these locomotives that I know of. I know the Milwaukee Road had electric locomotives similar to this, but it's not too common where I'm from. So it's certainly an unusual locomotive to me. Kind of a neat design, and definitely that orange and black and white paint scheme really stands out in the crowd. This is a very nice running locomotive, and the next time you see that, I will have its set of 9 cars cleaned up and ready to roll, and we will see if this thing is still capable of pulling its original train around. So you will see this locomotive again sometime down the road. Hopefully I can also find replacement locomotive horns to make this a complete locomotive again. Well, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like and a comment. And if you haven't subscribed, please do that. That helps out my channel grow. Until next time, thanks for watching My Grandpa's Train.